Agenda with me, Lasha Kingsley in Douala, Cameroon. The impact of COVID-19 and the oil prices war are proving to be two-pronged crises for oil, gas and chemicals companies. Oil's prices are dropping due to the failed agreements on production cuts, and the need for chemicals and refined products is slowing from industrial slowdowns and travel restrictions in the wake of this global pandemic. While the depth and duration of these crises are uncertain, experts say without fundamental change, it will be difficult to return to the attractive industry performance that has historically prevailed. Joining us on today's edition of the program is the managing partner of Africa's most successful law conglomerate, Centurion Law Group, that specializes in energy extractive industry and the financial sector. NJ Ayuk talks to the agenda. NJ Ayuk in South Africa, welcome to the agenda.
Thank you for having me. I hope you're staying safe and I hope everything is well with you.
We are okay, NJ. This is the first time we're having you on this program, and we appreciate your time and interest in My Media Prime Television. And like the viewership of this program, I am interested in the man NJ. Can you walk us through your educational and professional background?
Oh man, I was born in a small town in Cameroon, Mamfe. And I think I was not the smartest, but I think I was the luckiest. I had great parents and went to school in PSS Bisongabang in Mamfe. I think right now it's PHS. I've been out of there for so long. And I was lucky to have had some good breaks. Went to school in the United States. I had a bachelor. I then did an MBA and then also went to law school and trained to become a lawyer in a law school in Minnesota. And ever since, I worked for a few corporations and then decided to move on and create my own company, Centurion Law Group. And we started with 2 lawyers, then it became 4, then 8, and right now we have about 160 lawyers across Africa working for Centurion Law Group. And we just opened a big office, one in Frankfurt and one in Berlin. They will be our European base. We'll be doing a lot of work. We're looking at bringing in about 300 lawyers across Europe, dealing with just energy matters and corporate matters. We are taking on clients like Siemens, Lufthansa, and Deutsche Post, DHL, a lot of Wintershall, a lot of European conglomerates are working with us within Europe. And so, given where I come from, I think I'm blessed. I am very blessed. I think it's
NJ,
I don't take that lightly.
NJ, you have over the years built one of the most successful Pan-African commercial law practices with offices across the African continent. Can you tell us how you were able to do this? How did you do it?
I think it comes with sheer grit and tenacity and hard work. There is no substitute for that. And also one of the things is that I always say, I get to the office first, I get out last. And you also have to know how to connect with people. Hard work and intelligence doesn't just do it. You got to know how to connect. You got to be able to get with the guy who is at Aqua or Bonaberry or Wrong Point Douala and be able to still talk to him, but you can also walk in the biggest corporate boardroom and still speak their language. And I think that helped me. And I think coming out from an environment where, you know, I was a Sunday school teacher. Most people don't know that. And you get to know how to connect with people and work with all the little people. And that also gives you the guts to go into the big room. So we started, we won some really good cases. I never studied oil and gas law. I never studied energy law. I worked on it myself. I studied it myself at home, even after law school. But once you get one big transaction and one deal is gone, and you do some litigation, you get some cases gone, people start coming. But then, you know, to whom more is given, more is expected. You start, people start expecting more to you, and you have to fit the paces. And I think that's just what we did. And a lot of it, my colleagues, my partners, they really put in their best. And I was basically a vehicle. I was basically a leader that tried to put their resources together to get this going. And if I can do it, certainly a lot of other young people across Africa can do the same thing and do it even more and even bigger.
The global pandemic has changed the way business is done around the world. Sir, how has the year 2020 been like in the sector of oil and gas?
It has been one of the toughest since I got in the sector. Really brutal. You know, this thing has been, the COVID-19 together with the oil price crash has been so mean, it even makes medicine sick. You know, it is a tough place to be in right now. But when you look at the crash, we got to talk in it on everyday terms. A lot of manufacturers and industries have been shut down because of COVID-19. So the demand for oil reduces, and the biggest demand came from China, came from India, came from Europe. They're not producing anymore. So demand is no longer there. So you have this commodity that is very, very valuable, but nobody's buying it. Nobody wants it.
Probably due to travel restrictions. Travel restrictions. The airplanes, they are no longer moving.
You're absolutely right, sir. Travel restrictions. The airlines are not traveling. So demand is very weak. And in basic economics, when demand is weak and then there's oversupply, the price crashes. And that is what the oil industry has faced right now. And then you had a kerfuffle between the Saudis and the Russians, and that also hit with COVID-19. And you know, when you look at that with the African family, where you see Europe and America having a depression in their economies, a recession in their economies already, in Africa you're going to be having a depression because more people going to lose jobs. More people going to get out would lose contracts. Young people can't even go to school because parents can't afford it. But also, you're also going to see a lot of hospitals getting jammed because you don't have the necessary equipment or facilities there, or anything you have to buy just get very expensive. So people who are at the bottom, at the middle class, are really taking a hit. And that is what we continue to see across the continent. And this is a very, very difficult time for everybody. It doesn't matter if you're in the energy space or you're not, because everything we do, it's all intertwined with one another. So it has been, I've never seen anything like this. It has been rough.
Let's now talk about your book, Big Barrels. Where did you get the inspiration from? Because when I read through this book, you painting Africa beautiful when it comes to oil and gas industry. Because there's this image that we always have about Africa. It's all about misery, their exploitation of oil, and then African is underdeveloped. But your book is painting Africa beautiful when it comes to that sector.
Well, I think if we don't tell our story, someone else is going to tell our story, and they're not going to tell our story the way we want it. What we did with Big Barrels, it was, we want to show an Africa with its realities, Africa with its frailties, Africa with Africa is a complex continent, from poverty to dictatorships to looting, but also in spite of all the problems, you got to look at Africa from a different place where everyday families get up every day and get to work. Families get up every day and do unimaginable things. But also, you cannot just focus on criticizing every time. You got to look at what they put in place. It took Norway. In Big Barrels, we said, if a new African country is going to discover oil or gas, how can they get it right? Because we didn't want a repeated story that every time a country finds oil or gas, they get it wrong. So we say, for example, where are the African success stories? What projects or processes can be put in place where you get a one-stop shop and you get something beautiful for Africa? So we take, for example, if in your country, let's just say the country called Wakanda, or finds oil today, you say, okay, listen, I would look to Ghana for my petroleum regulations. They put a very good petroleum regulations. It helps local content, local communities. It shares the wealth with local communities because local communities have to participate in that. You can't have oil and gas in one community and that community doesn't even know that, doesn't even make anything from it. You want to look at how to do gas. Instead of flaring gas as Nigeria does, look at the lessons of Equatorial Guinea. They've built a great LNG plant. They're monetizing gas very well. The country has its own problems, but that's something you can learn from. Look at Nigeria, how they did local content. And you've seen a lot of Nigerian millionaires and billionaires come out of that. You go to Angola, you see a reliance on not shaking up the industry, leaving the technocrats do their work. So if you look at all around and look at what countries have done in some things and you pick those great lessons, we can build an Africa, an oil industry that you and I would be proud of. So I didn't want to always have that negativity told about Africa. I wanted to see I wanted to be part of that African generation that focuses on solutions, because negative stuff and people attacking all the time, it is there. But where are the solutions? Our generation should be about solutions. We need to write a new chapter, and what Africa needs now is solutions more than problems.
You advise many governments around Africa, and many African countries are dependent on natural resources, but very few of them have satisfactory transparency standards in oil, gas, and mining. And so it is difficult for citizens to know if they are getting a fair deal of the exploration of their country's wealth. So what have you been telling these governments around Africa that you've been advising when it comes to oil and gas?
I think what you do is there are best practices, best standards when it comes into managing revenues and managing resources. You put that together and everybody decides with their parliament and the president and the cabinet of ministers what they want. But when you look at each country is not, they have a different model that they choose, and that is what you just have to accept, that all are not equal. Every country has their own history and how they want to put it. But transparency, corruption is a scourge, and we all have an obligation to fight it, to combat it, and deal with it. And you can change laws, but sometimes the toughest things to change is habits. So you got to be tough. You got to be tough. If you're really serious about revenues, I'll tell you this: set aside revenues for the areas that this natural resource come from. For example, if you do that, you will not have the problems you have in the Niger Delta in Nigeria. You will not have the problems you're having right now that are sparking up in Mozambique, in the northern Mozambique, where there's big gas discovery, because people who have these resources need to feel like that. Doing deals, you need to have the right people negotiating deals.
And incidentally, you come from southwest. You come from southwest Cameroon, where oil is being exploited in your own region of origin. Have you had the opportunity to advise the government of Cameroon, because some of the areas where this oil is being extracted, they are underdeveloped. People live in misery.
They've never called me.
Have you made efforts to meet with them, to tell them what you think they should do when it comes to this sector that you've been very much, celebrated across the African continent?
I think you have to look at it this way. I think the government of Cameroon, they know what they believe is good for them. And I think if they value my experience, they would call me. I think they have their reasons why they don't want to seek counsel from other people, and that's fine with me. What concerns me though is the violence, the mismanagement, and it also concerns me that people who live in those communities are not feeling and don't feel as if they are participating in the development of those resources. The resources in that area, if properly exploited and if properly used, and if you can create jobs, but it's not just jobs in oil, but it can transform the region where you can go in and focus a lot more on using gas to create power. Because if you look at that southwest region, you've seen something which people don't talk a lot about: energy poverty. So many millions of people go to bed every day without any kind of lights, any kind of power. And you don't just need lights, but you need sustainable power so you can create jobs, you can really transform the economies, you can get a lot of young people back into work by creating urea, ammonia, NPK, fertilizer plants. So you produce yours, and then you can really transform that region and can become a hub that really sells into Nigeria, which is already a market right there of 200 million people, but also create some new export zones that you can start doing some real supply side economics, which I think could really help a lot of people there and really cure some of the social grievances there. But I think as a Cameroonian, you always available to assist when needed. You sometimes when you're not called, you know, they always tell you when they don't call you, shut up. So sometimes I prefer to shut up. And when they call me, other African nations that have deemed me qualified, I basically focus on doing my work there, and hopefully someday we will be able to do the best for our country, because you don't have any other country in Cameroon, so we have to make it better.
This is the last question, NJ, before we get out of the interview. In the light of China's growing engagement in Africa's mining or mineral sector, and as a major legal advisor to many African governments, how would you advise African leaders to engage with China so that they both benefit in the process?
I think it comes with tough discussions and deal making. The question you got to turn this question around. The question you got to ask yourself is that, what does China want from Africa? China wants your resources. What does China want to do with your resources? They use your resources, they use your gas to develop power, fertilizer plants, and build agricultural bases and everything. Your cobalt, they use it for, they mine it out of Africa, your gold, your diamonds, to do all of these things. They use your oil to power and also their industries and their automobile industries. We don't have to go the big scale of China, but we have to focus locally and say, what if we look at what they do with our resources? You just do that with your own resources. You do it in your own country, and you build that together here. You would now, you start having a right kind of negotiation with China, because the problem is that you cannot beg and borrow your way into prosperity. It's not going to happen. You can't go to China all the time and beg, borrow. You put in so much burden on future generations of your children, because many young people in Cameroon and in other countries, they are going to step in the future where they are in their 30s and in their 40s, even in their 20s, with a state that is so indebted that they will be basically to be able to say, I can't breathe because there's so much debt that we owe. So there's no, you can't have projects, so you become for a long term very dependent. So you have to start building a strong local economy, so that prevents you from taking loans and debt from China with, you know, some really bad terms, some really bad deals that these guys sign. Like, I don't even know who negotiates these deals. I don't know why they would even sign it. I mean, why would you sign a deal that would say you'll bring in 95% Chinese content? So you bring in 95% Chinese workers, Chinese contractors, everything. When you have people in your country who don't have jobs. So you have to focus. So we need some kind of nationalism that really breeds into thinking about the future. You got to look at these young people and say, what do they want? And you got to look at China and say, are you giving me that? Are you meeting their hopes and obligations? Not of the guys who are 60 and 70 and 80 years old. No, the young guys who are 20 and 30s. That generation, if we lose them in Africa, we are finished. We are finished. And if you don't start today to empower those young people, then you would not have more coming up like me, building up firms and creating things and other things. And that is really what we have to look at. And it's not only in Cameroon, but across the continent, because that is the Africa that we deserve and the Africa that we want.
NJ Ayuk in Johannesburg, South Africa, thanks so much for accepting to be part of this edition of the agenda. We're glad you honored our invitation.
Thank you so much, and God bless you. And please stay safe, stay healthy, so that you can continue doing all the good work that you do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. God bless you.